You know that classic phishing email, the one we all think we can spot a mile away? Well, it's evolving. Scammers are getting way smarter, they're faster, and they're using tools you really might not expect. Today, we are going to break down the latest phishing activity trends report to show you the new face of these digital threats. All right, here's our game plan. First, we're going to look at the sheer number of attacks just to get a sense of the scale we're dealing with. Then, we'll dive into a really clever new threat that involves QR codes. After that, we'll get into the huge financial hits that businesses are taking. And finally, we'll peek inside the scammer's playbook to see the surprisingly simple tools they use to make it all happen. So first up, the sheer volume of these phishing attacks. It's easy to think of them as just a minor annoyance in your inbox, but the data tells a completely different story. This is a massive and growing global problem. And the numbers? Well, they're pretty staggering. Get ready for this. In just the second quarter of 2025, the Anti-Phishing Working Group saw over 1.1 million unique phishing attacks. Let that sink in. That is more than 1 million attempts to steal our data in just 3 months. And this isn't just some random blip on the radar. As you can see from this trend line, it's been a consistent and honestly a worrying climb over the past year. So the big takeaway here isn't just that the problem is huge, it's that it's actively getting worse. Okay, so before we jump into the really new tactics, let's just make sure we're all on the same page. At its core, phishing is a crime of deception. It's all about social engineering, which is just a fancy way of saying they trick people, not computers, to get you to hand over your most sensitive info, from passwords to bank account details. Okay, now for the really interesting part. Let's look at how these scams are changing. Scammers are now weaponizing a piece of technology you probably use almost every day without giving it a second thought. And believe me, it is proving to be incredibly effective. Just think about how often you scan a QR code, maybe for a restaurant menu or a concert ticket, right? This new method is called quishing, that's QR code phishing, and it's betting on that exact casual trust we all have. By hiding the threat inside an image, the QR code itself, they can sneak it right past security software that's built to look for bad text links. It's pretty sneaky. So how popular is this new trick? Well, check this out. Over 635,000 unique malicious QR codes were detected this quarter alone. That just shows you how fast criminals are jumping on this new attack method. So how do they actually do it? How do they trick you with what is basically just a simple image? It's not just about sending you to a shady website. Their strategy is surprisingly sophisticated. Here's their 3-step playbook. First, they use free online QR code generators that are really hard to police. Second, they turn on tracking features to see when and where you scan the code, so they know what's working. But this third step, this is the real game changer. They can change the QR code's destination URL remotely. That means a code could point to a safe site when it's first scanned by security, and then, an hour later, be switched to a malicious site. It's a brilliant way to evade detection. And make no mistake, these attacks aren't just being sprayed out randomly. This shows they are strategically going after industries where the payoff is highest. Manufacturing, professional services, finance, these are all at the top of the list because a single compromised account there can lead to a huge payday. Now, to make their scams believable, they hide behind names you know and trust. Almost half of all these quishing attacks impersonate just 2 brands, DHL and Microsoft. So you get an email about a package delivery or a security alert, you scan the code without thinking twice, and bam, they've got you. So we've seen how they do it. Now let's pivot and talk about the devastating financial consequences. For businesses, this stuff goes way beyond just a stolen password. We're talking about direct, massive financial losses. This is where the social engineering gets really serious. It's a type of scam called business email compromise, or BEC for short. An attacker might pose as your CEO, asking for an urgent wire transfer, or pretend to be a trusted vendor, sending a fake invoice with new banking details. And the stakes here are incredibly high. In the second quarter of 2025, this was the average amount that scammers requested in a single one of these BEC attacks, $83,000 from just one deceptive email. But here's the part that is truly shocking. That average amount, it nearly doubled, a 97% increase from just the prior quarter. Scammers are getting way bolder, and they're asking for and probably getting much, much larger sums of money. And it's not just that the attacks are more expensive. They're also happening more often. The total number of these scams jumped by 27% in the same period. So you've got this combination of higher frequency and higher value, and it just shows you how profitable this crime has become. Okay, to finish up, let's pull back the curtain and look at the actual tools and services that make these huge heists possible. And you might be surprised to find it's, well, an almost mundane criminal operation. So how do they actually get the cash? You might think it's all about complex wire transfers, but that's only 4% of cases. The overwhelming favorite, at 72%, is simple gift cards. Yeah, you heard me right, gift cards. Why? Because they're really easy to convert to cash, and they're much harder to trace. And to build out their whole infrastructure, scammers aren't hiding on the dark web. Nope. They're using the same well-known companies that legitimate businesses use, like Namecheap and Cloudflare, to set up their malicious websites and emails. It just helps them blend right in. And where do the actual scam emails come from? Again, nothing exotic here. The vast majority are launched from simple, free webmail accounts that anyone can create in a few minutes. And as you can see, Google's Gmail is the undisputed favorite, used in 70% of these attacks. So when you put all this data together, it paints a really clear picture. Phishing is no longer just about suspicious links in poorly worded emails. Criminals are professionalizing their operations. They're using everyday tools like QR codes and Gmail, and they're adapting their tactics faster than ever. So the real question this leaves us with is, as their methods evolve, how do we make sure our awareness keeps up?